1000, 2000. Hello guys, Eden's here. I'm back with Genshin today. And today it's about the game's mechanism. To be more precise, it's about how your damage are calculated, whether they are from physical or elemental attacks. But I think we are going to talk about the physical one today. And hopefully, after this video, you guys can build your characters better. Uh, that sounds so wrong, but you guys know what I mean. Anyway, hope you guys can build your characters better, because after this video, you guys know what to do in order to get maximum damage out from a character. Yeah, you know. But before we begin, I want to thank my two friends, Hiru and Charu, for their cooperation in making this video. But you guys don't know who's Hiru and Charu? Let me introduce them. This is Hiru and this is Char. Without their help, today's video won't be possible. Yeah, so thank you. Thank you for being my sandbags, guys. Anyway, I'm going to split damage into two types. One is normal damage and two is elemental reaction. But yeah, as I said before, only normal damage will be explained in this video today. So yeah, normal damage. Normal, heavy or charge attack, elemental skill, elemental burst. Yeah, damages from these kinds of attacks are what I call normal damage. This type includes damages from weapons option, artifacts effect, or talent. And also these damages are calculated using the formula you see on the screen. Now, there might be words that you guys are not familiar with, but no worries, we're going to go through them one by one later. For now, what you need to know is ATK is attack, shown in the status screen. Talent is shown in talent page. So now let's just calculate how much damage Sora will deal to a level 76 heal curve with 10% physical resistance. Yeah, and as you can see, Sora has 1000, 2000. No, I mean 1000, 2000. The talent value of his first attack is 56.9%, and he has 74.9% of critical damage and 43.4% of buff from status, plus 35% from artifact, totaling 78.4 physical attack buff. Sora should deal 1025 critical damage or 586 non-critical damage. So yeah, so let's test it out. Yeah, turn out we got 1024 and 585. This is acceptable since there are decimal roundings, two decimal digits to be exact, going on behind the calculation. So 1 point error like this is still okay. So if Sora uses another weapon with different attack power, we can get the same exact value as in our calculation. This proves there are decimal roundings going on behind the screen. Now, let me explain the variables in the formula. ATK is obviously attack, and its value is the one shown on the character status screen. Sometimes this value changes due to foods and buffs, and if that's the case, then you have to use that new value in the formula. Next we have talent. Talent can be found on talent page, talent screen on the character status, and if you look at the detail, some talents have damage percentage, healing percentage, shield percentage, basically yeah, numbers. So these percentages will be used in the talent part of the formula based on what action the character is performing. For example, if Sora uses Windblade, then Windblade's damage percentage will be used in the formula. If Sora performs the first step of normal attack, the first combo, then the topmost percentage of normal attack talent will be used in the formula. So, and another thing to note for talent part is additional damage from weapons, effect, or character's talent are also counted as talent in the formula. What I mean by this is, for example, prototype Borsor effect, which is 50% chance of dealing additional 240% of damage, or Amy's first constellation effect, which is when performing normal attack, Oz will attack 2 dealing 22% damage. Or another one is Shori's fourth limit break effect, which is damage bonus based on max HP. So these kinds of additional or bonus damages are calculated in talent part of the formula. Next, damage buff includes normal attacks plus percent, heavy or charged attacks plus percent, elemental attack plus percent, physical attack plus percent, and about, yeah, I think those are buffs. So anyway, as for physical attack, since attack buff and physical attack buff are two different things, I think it's best to consider physical as an element 2, just to differentiate things, to avoid confusion. For example, Gladiator 4 sets effect is to increase one hand sword, two hand sword, spear, normal attacks by 35%. This actually applies on normal attacks only, not heavy or charged attack. This can be proved by subtracting the buff value from the set that is 35%. So originally we have 78.4% in the formula. I subtract that by 35%, resulting in 43.4%. So when Sora attacks the enemy, he will deal 1035 damage on critical hit and 592 on non-critical hit. So yeah, things would be different if the set's effect is increasing physical attack damage to 5%, right? Since Sora physical damage bonus comes from Gladiator's Cup, and it's clearly stated that the Cup increases physical attack damage by 43.4% and not normal attack damage by 43.4%. So it's clear. Next we have debuff. There are two types actually. We have defense debuff and resistance debuff, and let me be clear, those two are different. The game has effect like minus 15% defense, for example, Risa's elemental burst effect. There's also minus 40% of physical resistance, for example from superconduct elemental reaction. So clearly those two are different things. And I believe resistance debuff is better than defense debuff if you want to deal a specific type of damage. The only thing you have to watch out for resistance debuff is when the enemy's resistance drops below 0, say minus 30%, debuff value will be half. For example, if the enemy's physical resistance is 10 and you trigger super contact, which will decrease enemy physical resistance by 40, the enemy will suffer for minus 30% of physical resistance. But this value will be half in the calculation, resulting in minus 15% physical resistance in actual. So earlier, we already discovered that Sora's first hit dealt 1024 damage critical. Using the same calculation and value, if we add minus 40% as resistance debuff, Sora should deal 1000 extra. 1860 damage on critical and 1063 on non-critical. But as you can see, the damage is actually 1309 on critical and 748 on non-critical. If we halve the final resistance, 10% minus 40%, which is minus 30%, resulting in minus 15%, we will get the exact value 1310 non-critical and 749% on non-critical. 1 point error, but still acceptable. So this actually proves that the resistance debuff is actually get half if the enemy's resistance drops below 0%. So using my super brain and without help from any calculator or programs, of course, I discovered that as the defense debuff value increase, the greater benefit we can get out of it. And when defense debuff value is 100%, we can get maximum 97.77778% damage increase. But 100% debuff is kind of impossible at this moment, so yeah. I also discovered that benefit from gain from resistance debuff is very depends on enemy's resistance. If the enemy's resistance is 10%, at 100% debuff, resistance debuff, only 61.1118 damage increase can be obtained. But when the enemy's resistance is 50%, at 100% debuff, we can get 150% damage increase. But then again, 100% resistance debuff is kind of impossible at this moment. I've compared the benefit we can gain from these debuffs, defense debuff to resistance debuff, when the enemy resistance is at 10%. Also when it is at 50%. And as you can see, as enemy's resistance goes higher, the more crucial resistance debuff is. Things to note, another thing to note, there are characters capable of infusing their weapon with elemental properties, such as Hutao, Kokusei, Ayaka, Yoimiya. Yeah. There are also magicians like Kure, Gyoko, Risa, and their attacks use the same formula as normal damage. And let me be clear that elemental mastery doesn't affect your damage when you're using elemental infuse, because elemental mastery only affects elemental reaction. Keep that in mind. Lastly, there are various enemies, so obviously there are various resistance depend on the enemy. You guys can find the resistance list on on sites out there. It's not hard to find anyway. Alright, conclusion. To increase your DMAC output, of course you need to increase your status parameter, but keep this in mind. As the parameter gets higher, the status parameter, each parameter, the less benefit you will get from the increment. Say, like, you originally have 10, and I mean 1,000 attack points, and considering all other parameters remain unchanged, a point added to attack will give you 0.1% damage increase. And if you add another point, now you have from 1001 to 1002, you will get 0.0999% damage increase. So it's actually getting lower. To prove this, I made a chart. Yeah, thank me. Just to see the decrement for the next 10 points added to the parameter, starting from 1000 to 1010, as well as from 2000 to 2010. And as you can see, on 1000, the benefit decrement is 0.0001%, and as for 2000, it's 0.0002%. Obviously, I'm not going to show this kind of, this comparison to, on all parameters, because I'm too lazy. But just remember that this applies for all parameters. So yeah, with that in mind, I suggest rather than increasing a parameter, focusing on increasing a parameter, it's better to just spread the growth, so you can get a maximum benefit out of the growth. Anyway, yeah, I think that's for normal damage. I think I spoke too much. Anyway, on the next video, I think I'll talk about elemental reaction damage and probably shield calculation. So yeah, be sure to come back again. Yeah. Well then, later.